Across the country right now, a growing number of universities are trying to recruit a very specific type of undergrad. Men. Young men are foregoing four-year college education more often these days. Sometimes they're headed straight to the job market, other times pursuing a skilled trade, but the change here has been stark. Pew Research found in 2023, young men made up only 42% of four-year college students. Around that same period, the Education Department reported young women now earn 59% of college degrees. 41% go to men. That's a total reversal of a few decades prior. Why does it matter? Well, there are serious implications on earnings, on dating, on America's workforce. And universities are taking notice, actively trying to recruit more young men. Dr. Kelly Nolin is the director of admissions at the University of Montana. And her message to young men, when you just boil it down, is this: you belong here. Kelly Nolin, welcome to All Boy.
Thanks for having me.
You have a flagship school, you're the director of admissions, and the breakdown of male-female is a really hot topic right now. At your institution, what is that breakdown?
Well, we just completed our census numbers for fall of 2025, and we have 43% male students, which is actually up slightly from last year. I was looking at those numbers again yesterday, and last year we were at 42%. So
Okay.
we've seen just a very slight uptick, but it does represent a couple dozen students. And we saw a similar, that's for our overall enrollment, and we saw similar percentages in our incoming class, bumping up just slightly from 42% to 43%, but reflecting the national trends.
And you guys have been really intentional about trying to reach young men, and we're going to get into that. Just curious, from your perch as the director of admissions, because you're kind of on that front line, first contact with parents and students, when it comes to the share of male, female on campus, are parents attuned to that?
So in having conversations with families, I don't know that parents are specifically aware of the lack of men in college. I think there have been a lot more stories on the news in the last year, so more are cognizant that there is that gender split. I don't see a lot of families asking about it, though. What I do see a lot of is moms who really want their sons to be in college. They are having incredibly long conversations with our staff about helping their students get through all the different processes, the application process, what it takes to get ready to be a student here in terms of applying for housing, getting registered for classes. My counselors affectionately call them boy moms. They are very aggressively trying to make sure that their students are getting all the support services that they need in order to be successful. And I certainly don't fault parents for wanting to start their students off on the best foot that they can.
Just curious, do they give a reason why they feel it is so important to get them there to a four-year college campus?
I think that there's a lot of reasons, and it's not just these parents in particular. I think we've seen that in the last few years, there have been a number of studies talking about male students' alienation, their sense of loneliness, high levels of anxiety and depression, and just sort of disengaging with society. And I think a lot of families see college as an opportunity to connect students with a larger community, to maybe to get them out of the house. They don't want their kid living at the house anymore. And, they want them to transition to adulthood. And college is one of the ways that students can do that.
Yeah. And I'm going to reference a few times in this conversation your conversation you had with Volt. I thought it was a great article, and I want to shout out the reporter Erica Levi Zellinger. And in it, she says, some moms have said, well, my daughter coming here, she kind of likes rugged men. Like, she wants there to be men. And, somewhere like Montana, she wants a rugged man. Well, are you hearing anything from the students themselves, boy or girl?
So that was the quote that I gave to Erica was a family that ended up in our welcome center. And we had done a series of ads that we thought would be appealing to men. So we knew that this was an issue. Our marketing department, they did a very small focus group with some of their male students to ask them why they had chosen the University of Montana. And they cited things like our location with easy access to skiing and rivers, fishing, hunting, all those types of things. And so we thought, okay, let's play that up in some of our ads. So we did a whole campaign centered around our forestry program, our lumberjack sports. Lumberjacks were featured heavily in some of our materials, and this family came to visit. They specifically cited the postcard that had the lumberjack on it. And they said the reason why they had come from Virginia to Montana was because they wanted rugged men in a conservative state. And that's what we had advertised. So it actually had a different impact than we had expected. We thought that maybe it would impact men, but it impacted female students, and I think that that's fine. You have previously spoken to Richard Reeves, and Richard is very clear that when we talk about recruiting male students, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, we know that there is still work to be done for female students and leveling the playing field in a lot of ways. But it doesn't mean that we can't still intentionally recruit men. And so that's just one of the things that we did. I think when you think about recruiting students in Montana, we have a population that is, we have one of the highest military and veteran populations in the country. We have a lot of people who come here to work on ranches or farms or in different mining industries. And so we do have access to a lot of male students, but they sometimes reject higher education based on political beliefs. And so one of the things that we have tried to stress is that even though we are in what a lot of people in state see as a blue dot in a red state because we are in Missoula, that there is a place for everybody here. I think we struggle sometimes even with students who are non-residents who are looking at Montana and they see Montana as a red state, but in our state we're seen as a blue city. And so trying to walk that fine line and appeal to students across a variety of religious spectrums, political spectrums, just their experience, their age, all of that, to say that there is a place for you no matter where you are in your career, that it might just be technical training, it could be a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or a graduate degree. Like, we have a lot of things that we can offer students.
Right. I want to go deeper on that sense of belonging. And also, like you were talking about with Richard Reeves, there is the lumberjack cohort, but there's also, you mentioned purpose, practicality, career readiness, that these other things speak to men in maybe a more powerful way sometimes. Real quick, can I just ask you philosophically, again, I did mention that we've had a complete reversal from when Title IX went into effect now of men versus women who are graduating. Is parity, like complete parity, is that the goal? Like, what is the goal?
Wow, that is a deeper philosophical question, and I don't know that it's parity. I think more about equity and trying to make sure that people have what they need in order to be successful. When I was coming up, and I'm a Gen Xer, I studied feminist philosophy in college, and I remember early on in my marriage, my husband asked me what my ideal job would be, and I said talking to women and getting them to go to college so that they can get the jobs they needed to support their families.
Mission accomplished.
Right. Yes. And now here we are 25 years down the road and men are falling behind. Yeah. And it is not a good thing for society if there isn't, if we have whole portions of people in our country who are just falling out of the the education cycle. So I was reading an article last week that was talking about by 2032, they expect there will be more than a 5 million person gap between the number of jobs that required college educations and the number of people who actually have that education.
Really?
And so this is a big deal, not just for businesses, but for our country. How will we fill these positions? What does that mean for our economy? And so philosophically, I think what we need to do is to reach out to men in a way that helps them to get the things that they need. So it's not just cramming a 4-year education down their throats and saying you have to have this to be successful, but it's helping them envision the life that they want to have. And I think a lot of people in general want to be able to live independently. They want to have enough to support themselves, to support their family. They want to feel connected. They want to feel like they have a sense of purpose. And I think college is really one of those ways that we connect people, specifically men right now, to those higher purposes.
And also just, these are my words, not yours, like from the book of Boys and Men, it connects people. And many women who go to college want to marry a man who went to college. And if they don't have a counterpart, family formation becomes a really big deal. We know that the lowest likelihood of getting married, of having children right now, are people who are low educational attainment. You know, they might have less access to income. And so a lot of these things do create this larger tapestry of issues down the road that maybe aren't so self-evident at this moment. So you're trying to get on that. And we talked about the brochures. I like the lumberjack video. I thought it was cool. But you had an even better video, which was this Self-Reliance course, which is really kind of a, I don't know, hunting wilderness. It was like 6 minutes, beautifully shot and edited. And it was saying, if you come here, you have something really special. You have access to that. Any other initiatives that you've undertaken? And how successful have they been, do you think?
So I love that wild sustenance video that you're talking about, because it is about hunting and it is about self-sufficiency, and I feel like it does appeal to a wide population of people, whether you're into nature conservation or hunting in order to provide food for your family. I really like the direction that it takes. So we did emphasize that. We did a lot of updating of our materials to include pictures of people skiing and whitewater rafting, or our football team is a really big deal here at the University of Montana, like at a lot of flagships. On game day, our stadium fills up and becomes the 6th largest city in Montana. And so we get a lot of support for our football team. But not all men care about sports. And so trying to stereotype men as very specific things and saying these things appeal to all men is not going to make us be successful. I think we have worked, so I mentioned previously in the article that you referred to earlier, that the University of Montana is a partner in Richard Reeves' organization, the Higher Education Male Achievement Collaborative.
Yes.
And so I went to their first partner convening in the spring, and they had a group of people who were talking about, who had done research about, is it enough to just add men to the view book or to show sports or ruggedness? And the answer is no. Like, that's clearly not the thing that works. And what they were proposing is that you can be more successful if you help men make connections. So first of all, a lot of male students don't feel like they're academically prepared for college. And I think that goes to Richard Reeves' book on Boys and Men, where, there's a maturity level, there's maybe some things that happen in elementary school through high school, where they're not getting the things that they need to be ready at the age of 18 in order to go to college. So trying to communicate to men really all students, that there are more than 4,000 colleges and universities in this country, and most of them are relatively easy to get into. I think the problem with so much of the discussion around higher education right now is that people seem to view them as the highly selective institutions, and that's not what most colleges and universities are. And so in the state of Montana, not just the University of Montana, but all of our institutions, if you have a specific GPA, which is a 2.5 from high school, you're admissible to college, which is really great. And if you have below that, all of our universities have embedded community colleges. And so you're either admitted to the university or admitted to the community college. So trying to communicate that your academic preparation, you're probably going to be fine here. Like, go ahead, apply. We have opportunities to support you. So I think that's one of the places where we start.
One big concern of students right now is they have become aware of the, what is it, like $1.5 trillion of student loan debt that prior generations have accumulated. And so when you talk about something like, go ahead and start, give it a try, a lot of people end up not finishing, but then they have this debt on top of it. And, debt, the big worry. I want to pull out from Gallup recently. We saw this, plummet of perceived importance of going to college among men and women, but men more so. Let me see the numbers here. College is very important. In 2013, men said 65% thought that it was very important. Today, 29%. Let's get into the Vanderbilt article in a second, but what does that signal to you as someone who's actively trying to recruit students?
I think there's been a lot of messaging in the last few years about how college is not necessary to be successful. And I want to make it clear that I agree with that. I don't think everybody has to go to college. However, I also think that it's easier for male students to go into professions right out of high school where college is not a requirement, and to make a salary that allows them to support themselves and their families in a way that a lot of those professions, since there's generally male-oriented. It doesn't mean women can't go into them and all of that. It's just that more men do go into the trades, construction, ranching, mining, things like that. And these professions make a lot of money right out of high school. And so, yes, it's not important maybe right when you graduate, but as you start to get into your 40s and 50s and your body doesn't work the same way that it did.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't work the same way as when you were in your 20s. Maybe if you are open to retraining or, to going back to school. I think that I honestly believe that we will see an influx of non-traditional students in the next 10 years.
Really?
People who have opted out of college, who get to a point in their careers where either it's not what they expected it to be, it's physically not possible to have those jobs anymore, or they simply want to do something else. I think that to be prepared for the future, colleges have to be able to welcome back students from non-traditional ages and non-traditional backgrounds.
Let me read the Vanderbilt article that came out. It has Vanderbilt Unity poll also this year. Confidence in higher education rebounds, though affordability and political bias are still concerns, which we'll get to. But so it's kind of confusing, I think, for a lot of us I don't know exactly how they're asking the questions. You have a Ph.D., you probably understand that better than I do, but of what they're asking and what they're actually picking up on. But it seems there's a general sense that college can be really valuable. Maybe if it's for Arthur Brooks, I don't know if you know him. He's a Harvard business professor, talks about happiness, does all this research. He's a psychologist. And he always talks about how two of his kids went to the Ivies. One of his sons, who, had ADHD, he knew his son's grades. He knew he was going to go and maybe burn out spectacularly. He said, no, go, I think he went to ranch or something like that, and then he went to the military. And he said, I bet one day he'll go back, but not right now. So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out just how important college is right now.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a good question, and every student and family has to ask and answer that question for themselves. I will say that even when I was in high school, I had this concern and this conversation with my mom, and I was worried how we were going to pay for college. And I went to her and told her I think I should join the Army so that
Really?
I can pay for college. And my mom said, I really want you to go to college, and if you still feel this way afterwards, you can join the Army. So I went into college and I majored in English and philosophy, and then I joined the Army.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. And I learned a lot of skills that were really valuable and built my confidence in a way that I never would have anticipated, so that I was able to put my education to use. So I don't think we always know what the best answer or the best right or what the best combination of experience and timing is for people, but we have to be open to more options. I don't think that going to college right away after high school is the best for a lot of students. I think that we need to have more opportunities to get life experience, whether it's in the military or the Peace Corps or going on a religious mission or those types of things. We need to be open to bringing in students where they are in their own growing process.
That is so cool. I did not see that on your LinkedIn profile. I think that is so cool that you did that, because I was the exact opposite. I was the sociology major asking, what's the maximum amount I can take out? And then how can I go on top of that? I thought it'll be fine. And it's not always fine. So it's really so interesting that you did that. You were really thinking, which girls at that age probably thinking ahead more than a lot of boys, I guess. Wow, that's cool. When men are deciding, okay, yes, University of Montana, that is the one for me, I want to do it. Are there particular programs that are attracting them that you find?
Sure. I think that forestry is one of our biggest programs that does appeal to male students. That's here
And what is that?
at the. Basically, it's a program that talks about conservation of our forests. It delves into the plants and animals. It involves things like forest fighting and forest fire fighting, and how you prevent that or how you do burns in order to keep the forest healthy, things like that. Our College of Business is very popular. I think you see a lot of men who would like to be entrepreneurs and go into business for themselves. And not everybody can just run their own business,
Right.
or it does take some knowledge of systems and how to operate, and that's how education can be successful. At the University of Montana, I mentioned previously, we have embedded community colleges.
Yes.
And our community college offers a lot of programs in the trades that fill up and have waiting lists for specifically male students. Things like welding, diesel mechanic, construction management. There's a class so that you can get your license to drive a semi truck. And so it's just showing that there are lots of opportunities for students. We know that Montana is a huge state with not a lot of people, and so we have to have a wide variety of options to serve the students and families of our state.
In particular, you think of Montanas, which are special places in America. It is my number one state I would like to visit, and the self-sufficiency aspect seems to run really strong there. I spend a lot of time in West Virginia, kind of similar there, like people just get things done, and that doesn't mean you don't need your community, but people like self-sufficiency. And this idea of self-reliance or independence, or just not viewing the Fortune 100 as just having this majesty and can do no wrong, and you have to go to work for them in order to truly be successful. It seems like it is kind of falling away in many ways among young people. So I just picked up on that. Many times this idea of self-reliance or independence is coming up more so than when I went to college 20-something years ago, I think. Okay, good for them.
Yeah, I mean, even just today, I was reading an article online about how the American dream is dead for Gen Z. Like, they don't believe that if they work hard, that they will be able to get a job that they can retire from, or a house, or be able to have a family, by relying on the systems that we've had in place. And so in order to be successful, you have to rely on yourself. And
Yeah.
I do think Montana is uniquely positioned to appeal to students like that. We have a new marketing campaign that is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, that's basically like, you've seen Yellowstone, you don't think Montana has internet, we all ride horses, but check us out, because this is what we really have to offer. And so trying to play into that, you have to be hardy to live in Montana. I'm not originally from Montana. I'm from Southern California, which I don't like to say a lot in Montana, but I moved here from Colorado because I love the mountains and the rivers. But it's not easy to be here, and you do have to be independent, and you have to be able to reach out to your community, because if you do, they're here to support you.
Yeah, hardy. That's a good word, hardy. A few other schools are noted in the Volt article I wanted to point out. Montclair State University, she says, Barbershop. It's a campus program promoting male leadership where students can get a haircut free of charge while discussing mental health or relationships. University of Vermont, emphasizing themes that particularly resonate with young men, like entrepreneurship, innovation, global engagement, and career readiness. It sounds kind of like a Shark Tank competition. As you're speaking with your peers at other institutions, and you're looking specifically at young men, what sort of conversations are happening?
So again, at the HEMAC partner convening, I sat with a group of professors. I think they were from Virginia. Sorry, not professors. They were student affairs professionals. And they were talking about a program that they did where they wanted to attract more men to come to some of their programs and to talk to them about counseling. And they basically started barbecuing bacon on the quad, and like to stereotype men. And they were basically like, if you grill bacon, the men will come.
It's like a Looney Tunes thing.
Yeah, it is. But they said that a lot of men stopped by and they were able to pass out pamphlets. I mean, these are funny things that some people are doing, but I think that we're all concerned about how our society and our country may be falling behind if we leave men out of this equation. It is a serious issue, and one that I don't think anybody has the right answer. And right now, we're just throwing everything at the wall to see what will stick.
I was noticing the other day, I think it was on LinkedIn, and Richard Reeves had maybe reposted it, and there was a discussion maybe in the LA Times. Someone wrote that with young men, if the young man ends up living in the basement or just kind of wandering his way through and not doing very well, and we treat that on a family by family basis rather than a systemic issue, and we've all become accustomed to talking about so many other things systemically, right? Gender as far as women go, or race or religion, that there's been kind of this reluctance when it comes to men to talk about systemic issues. And that's why I was asking about the conversations, because college campuses love to talk about systemic issues. I wonder if that had gotten through to them yet.
Yeah, I think that is challenging because, historically, the system has benefited men. Right. And so to think about, now we need to help them systemically when it feels like the system favors them overall in so many other ways, it is difficult. When I first mentioned to somebody on campus that I was involved with HEMAT, they said, why?
Why? Yeah.
Like straight men, they don't need this. They already have all the privilege. And I think that is insensitive and short-sighted, because I can see why men feel like they are being left behind. And it is important for all of us as a system to reach back and to provide that support. I know that I have benefited from that as a woman, finding that community. And so I know that is how we will end up making a difference. It's just a very difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, it's going to have to be done with finesse, because I could see some people saying this is affirmative action for men.
Yes.
Rather than this is something that's really important holistically and individually, which I don't think there's a parent out there who has a son who wouldn't want him to do well. And you can acknowledge, yes, there have been serious inequities in the past, and there's been, as you said, benefits enjoyed by men in the past, but we have to look at right now too, and so it's really important to deal with what we're dealing with. Okay, so that belonging, maybe that gets us to belonging. That word, it's not just a word or an initiative, it's also a feeling. How do you think about belonging and young men on your campus?
I think the way that we think about it is that you are part of our community, and all colleges talk about their community because we all have clubs, we all have sports teams, we all have residence halls that have special programming that reach out to students. So I want to make it clear that while I feel like the University of Montana is very special, the things that we are doing are not unique. And so families with sons can and should be looking to all the colleges and universities around them. If you are concerned about maybe a particular political leaning of your local institution, look to find a different one, because there are opportunities to find schools that match your beliefs, whatever those may be. So I think just trying to be... So in Montana, the University of Montana is seen as a liberal arts school in comparison to Montana State, which is more the land-grant institution, and they offer engineering and science. Well, we also offer those programs, but I think when you say liberal arts, people automatically shut down and they think, if I send my kid there, they're going to get liberal ideas. And so I've been thinking about this a lot, like what is liberalism? And if you look it up, it's about having an open perspective, being willing and able to look at things from somebody else's vantage point. It's problem solving, it's being creative, it's being able to communicate. So these are all things that we do stress at the institution. But I don't want people to get it confused with being liberal and with indoctrinating their students. Like, we work really hard at the University of Montana to be welcoming to a wide spectrum of students. We did host Charlie Kirk last year, but we also hosted Bernie Sanders and AOC. And I think one of the things that our university president, Seth Bodner, stresses really quite a bit is the importance of having these diverse political and cultural conversations in a way that is respectful and that allows for empathy and understanding. Like, we will only close the gap that we see in our country if we can start thinking about the things that we have in common rather than just the things that divide us. And that's what a liberal arts education should provide.
The word liberal, it is so interesting that you say that, because, I mean, a classical liberal education, you're learning letters, numbers, you're engaging with ideas that sometimes make you uncomfortable or even mad, and that's kind of the whole point of it. And a lot of people have felt like colleges have gone too far to one direction, to where, the professors are 9-to-1 progressive or something like that, or in class don't broach certain things, don't even glance at certain things because you can get really big trouble. So it sounds like you guys are making an effort to say, no, we're going to do it the way it used to be done, which is that everybody gets to speak. It's going to be done respectfully, but everyone gets to speak and think.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yep.
Let me, can I say the
go ahead.
numbers real quick, just to
Yes, of
make sure
course.
we're on the same footing here? A lot of men feel out of place on college campuses, as we know. Tufts put out some numbers this year that young men voted 56% for Donald Trump in 2024. Young women, 58% for Kamala Harris. And so, we know that colleges have traditionally leaned left. That's become even more so in recent decades, it seems. And then there is this chasm, this huge cleavage between the two sexes on campus right now. And so that's why you keep saying everyone's invited regardless of their ideology and party affiliation, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we've never been more divided, but there's never been a more important moment than for us to try and find that common ground.
A lot of men are asking, what can I do now? What sort of masculinity is welcome, and all of this, which I'm sure seminars will be offered on that sort of stuff, and they, and they ought to be. But as far as when they're actually there, we don't only want to have men matriculating, we want to have them graduating too. As I said, only 41% in the latest education department numbers I could find are the ones getting the bachelor's degrees, walking across the stage and moving the tassel. Are you guys putting an effort toward making sure men graduate?
Yeah, absolutely. With our census numbers that just came out earlier this week, we have our highest retention rate that we've ever had at 77.2%.
Great.
Which means that the students who are coming are staying. There are a lot of services on campus that are working with all students to make sure that they graduate. Our graduation rates are at records that we're pleased with. Obviously, we always want to see more people graduate in 4 years. The average graduation, the average time to graduation is about 4.5 to 5 years. But students are graduating. I think we all have a big concern about students who start college, like you mentioned, and who take loans, but then don't leave with a credential that they can use in order to earn money to pay back their loans. And so there are initiatives on campus. I'm not super involved in those, but I do know that there are things to help men feel connected. There's a lot of support from our academic advising team. They do regular check-ins with students, and if the students aren't showing up to appointments, they go and find them. They, to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to be successful.
Good. If I'm a parent, I want someone tracking them down.
Right? Yeah. You don't want them just lost on campus, and so. I think when you start to think about what kinds of masculinity are on campus, obviously we did a campaign around ruggedness and that sort of thing, but we do also, obviously, masculinity is a wide spectrum. And again, we welcome everybody. And I think that's the main thing that I would want people to take away. And that's to be said for most colleges and universities. We joke in admissions that we're the College of Admissions, or the Office of Admissions, not the Office of Denies. And I think that that's what a lot of colleges and universities want to do. We want to be able to admit students.
Yes, and you want to know as a student, and you want to know as a parent when you walk onto that college campus. I remember I went to a Jesuit school. I was gay, came from a Pentecostal family, felt like, where do I fit in? And you find your people. I wound up in a fraternity, which, again, was not the usual, but they welcomed me. The Jesuits welcomed me. And it feels like, even if you don't fit into these boxes, that's what you want on college campuses, because you're supposed to meet people who are different from you. And then, you wind up a Catholic later on in your life like I did. You just never know where it's going to take you. That's the beauty of college, right?
Exactly. I like to tell people I was both a college Republican and a college Democrat when I was in college. It's good to experiment and to see where you fit in. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on student character development, and basically about how we use humanities subjects to help students live vicariously through different subjects so that they can figure out for themselves what they believe. And I think that's what college should be for. Just because your beliefs are challenged doesn't mean that you're being criticized for them. I think that if you can defend what you believe and you come back and you feel more centered in yourself and you can make an argument for why you feel that way, then your beliefs have been strengthened. And that's what college should be about. Like it's not being critical, it's just being tested. And
Yeah.
I think that helps build resilience, which is one of the areas where I do think this new generation needs to focus a little bit more.
Yeah, you'll get some resilience building when you go home for Thanksgiving and everyone says, "What are you talking about?" So maybe, Kelly, can we end here, because I love where you're taking us, that diversity has been a big focus, sex, gender, viewpoint, religious, geography, also an important one, probably. You have to think about this next year, but you also have to look in your position 10 years down the road, 50 years down the road for the health of the institution. As you look to the future and admissions in higher education, I said the numbers about the average American. Do you feel hopeful about higher education?
I do. I wouldn't be in this work if I didn't feel hopeful. When I was preparing for this interview, one of the questions that you had sent to me ahead of time was, what is the mission of higher education as we think about diversity? And honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. It is about hope. Going to school, broadening your perspective, trying to think about the future. It is a hopeful act. And I talk to my counselors all the time about how the work that we do matters because it changes lives. And it's not just a 4-year degree. It's any student who comes to our campus, even if it's only for a semester. We need to make sure that the impact that we're having on those students is a positive one. And, for a student and a family that goes to college, I like to think about it as a family with supporters, because it's not just that one student. The student comes, they get the education, but there's ripple effects for their family and for their future generations. And so that's why I think the mission of higher education should be about instilling a sense of hope, which is something I think has been lacking in our country in the last few years. But if you really start to dig into what education offers and you see a variety of viewpoints, you can see that we're not just stuck in one way of being, that there are a lot of different paths for a lot of different people, and that's what colleges and universities can provide. So
boy, it's encouraging to hear about hope, and also just to hear your bold vision at Montana about the future as it pertains to young men, but also, other students. Everyone welcome. I love that. Kelly Nolin, thank you so much.
Chance, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Campus life is always changing, right? Education always changing. So what do you think of the efforts to attract more young men to campus by emphasizing leadership and readiness and purpose and stability and adventure? And Shark Tank, I guess, some places. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, please subscribe for free on Substack, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. The website is allboyallgood.com. I'm Chance Seals. See you soon.